In this video, I wanted to take a look at the Jurassic World poster. This is one that was used, one of several. The one you probably saw in cinemas is simply a logo on top of a wall or blank background, however you really want to term it. It's really just over a texture. And that one is bland and boring enough that I'm not even going to bother talking about it. It is a callback to the original one. I get that, but as far as reviewing it, there's not a whole lot of point and purpose. Instead, I'd rather focus on this one that was released prior to Jurassic World. So it's an early marketing piece, and these are put out really quickly, as I talk about in pretty much every video. And this one makes similar mistakes that you would see on some of those others. For one thing, we talked about this with the Mad Max poster, or at least I did. Acknowledging the midline. You'll notice this poster does the same thing. We have this really intensely thick wall that runs up the middle, acknowledging the midline, and then the poster is split into two, showing me the contrast of, and really a nice sense of scale. The human here, the dinosaur here, and also you get kind of this jungle versus corporate, science versus nature thing. So that's even a common theme from the original movie. I'll give them some credit for that, just because I like that theme, and it is an overarching theme to the film itself. But because of this construction that it has, this poster does have considerable issues, one of which is this wall in the middle, which we'll talk about why it's there a little further on, but it is taking up a lot of really important geography, really important real estate that is a part of this poster. In fact, it's more or less the focal point. You'll notice it's really bright on the left. It's also intensely bright on the right. So my eye is drawn to this darker element directly in the middle and a little bit to this logo down at the bottom, although it doesn't get prominent positioning. So they're essentially drawing my eye. They're creating a focal point using the least important aspect of the entire image, which is the wall. It's very thick, takes up too much space. Then also you have the balance of dark and light. In fact, if I open up a curves layer, you can see on the histogram that this is a really oddly even balance of dark and light elements. You can see where we have near white on top of the scales of the dinosaur, as well as the light coming through the window, the uniform of the figure. We have a lot of white. The background is intensely white. It's blooming. So this picture itself, both of them, are really overexposed. What that does is it keeps them from being able to establish a focal point beyond something in contrast to that light, which is anything dark. Darkest areas on the image are right here, and down in the bottom corner. None of which are really important as far as grabbing people's attention and making them want to look at the poster more. So you have to think about where you're drawing the eye. If you look at a classic painting like one of my favorites, Washington crossing the Delaware, you'll see that for one thing there's no blooms of light. Instead they use light colors and then darker ones in contrast, and they create a focal point here over Washington himself, where you'll notice the sky gets very light behind him, creating a halo effect. This is an intentional focal point that draws the eye into the picture first and then leads it through it down in this direction and throughout. So if we compare it to classical art, that's what you get. This one not doing quite so good of a job. And also, we have to talk about linear perspective with this, which is a big issue. One of the reasons for this bar that runs through the middle is because we're not actually looking at a single photo that was taken from one camera. We're looking at two photos from two different focal points. Not focal point, but station point. That would be the word if you're talking in terms of linear perspective. I tend to jumble these bits of terminology together a little bit much. But here's the best illustration of it. Alright, if I want to establish where the actual vanishing point of something, this over here on the left is in one point perspective. We can see that by looking down the hall. I'm not going to explain that, I'm just going to show you. If I follow these lines and allow them to converge, I'll start with this one, and all lines converge if they're going the same direction to show you the vanishing point. So it's about right there. If I pull them down, here's our eye line. This is where the camera is positioned. So it's just below her eye line. And this is where the camera was positioned. Literally, actually positioned is right here. It was pointed there. So it was not, as the poster is trying to tell you, pointed right here in the middle and then you can see both sides. That's not the case. It was actually pointed here. So what happens from that is if I take another line and I drag from that point to show you where the hallway would extend out to, and let's assume it's in the middle right here. This is where the edge of the hallway is. I can't see it very well, and also I'm using the wrong tools to accomplish these things. Somewhere about right there. That means this hallway would extend out all this way, and that's why it looks a little bit weird, a little bit off balance. The wall would actually be here when they have it positioned right in the middle. So the perspective is not right, and because of that it feels weird, and that's why they had to use such a thick, which is obviously homemade. If you look at it, it's just rectangles with texture put over the top of them. These are literal shape tools in Photoshop used to make this wall. And that's why it's so thick, to cover up that problem when they went in and photoshopped it down. You could even see, if you look down here, some really fuzzy stuff there behind it. I'm assuming that's some leftover from the hallway that they were erasing. But that's the big problem with it. This has very little character to it. In fact, while I have about a minute left, I can show you, jumping over to a specialty poster that was done for Comic-Con. This is an actual illustrated poster for Jurassic World, and the difference in quality is ridiculous. I don't even understand why we're using marketing materials like that if they take the time to go ahead and build something that looks this good. They actually did contract with an illustrator who did this terrific poster that is a straight callback to the original style and themes of Jurassic Park, and then also clear focal point right here with this raptor isolated against the background, leading the eye down here with little highlights to show you the nest, the original vehicle from the first Jurassic Park, and just a great range of dark and light. Notice there is no white highlights. There's just lighter colors than the context around them. That's what makes good poster, and we should let more movie posters be done by actual illustrators like this one was. I never blame the designer. I blame the marketing companies who are trying to turn these around too fast. Let an artist actually do some work, and you'll be getting much better posters to hang on your wall than you have in the past.